In today's video, I'm going to tell you why I was wrong about FIRE. Financial independence, retire early. Gosh, who'd have thought I'd be sat here making this video? Like most people, I'm hardly the best at admitting when I'm wrong. If not wrong, certainly a little wider the mark. Can you hear that? That's the sound of my pride taking a fall. Oh, sorry, dad jokes already. If you're new here and wondering what on earth I am going on about, this all goes back to a couple of months ago where I made this video here, which, a bit like when my wife first saw me without my trousers on, caused a bit of an unexpected reaction. Is that it? On went my wife's glasses and out came a pretty questionable sketch of me reading in my best newsreader's voice. It went on to be the most disliked video on the channel, by quite some way, and still is, and saw me booted out of all FIRE community forums that I was a part of. I still get comments to this day giving me some stick, so much so I even pinned this comment to the video, as I cannot ever understand why people would come and spend time leaving such negativity, even if someone's got a different opinion to you. It's like going for a walk, seeing a steaming pile of dog shit, and choosing to step in it so that you can be outraged, rather than just walking round it and getting on with your life. Interestingly, most of the extreme comments that were left on the video have since been removed by the authors themselves. Read into that what you will. There's even one thread that's now left on there that just looks like my wife is talking to herself. Look at that, true love fighting for my honour. In all seriousness though, I think talking to herself is how she feels most of the time living with me. I was kindly invited on the Playing Footsie podcast recently, link to that below if you want to have a watch, where I was referred to as the human fire extinguisher. And when I read that, first of all, I thought, hey! And then I sort of thought, I wish I'd thought of that. That is quite a cool name. But all in all, it did really begin to make me think. It's not that I've completely changed my view on this. It's simply that after many discussions and conversations with people after posting the original video, I do realise that my angle and the point that I was making was a bit oversimplified, and there's simply much more to it. Let's rewind. This story starts in my professional life as a financial planner and advisor. I was working on some retirement planning for a client, crunching the numbers to see when and how they might be able to retire early. Did they have enough to make that brave step? And I was really pleased to be able to tell them that they did. And then the reaction came, and it is one I will never forget. It wasn't joy or any form of happiness, really. I'll tell you what it was. It was pure, unadulterated relief. The biggest exhale of a life's worries. Working a job they utterly detested. Waking up at the crack of dawn, grafting every single day, next to people they certainly didn't call their friends, and just really willing the days to come to an end. Every single day. 5 days a week for 50 or so weeks of the year. His answer to this life of misery was FIRE, financial independence, retire early. The idea that he would live a frugal existence and squirrel away every penny and pound until he'd built a pot big enough to enable him to retire early and escape this unbearable situation. And this for me is where he fundamentally went wrong. Something I've seriously come to realise over these last few years is that, although it's what most of us spend all of our time chasing, money is not the precious commodity we think it is. It is simply a tool to access the most precious commodity of all, that is time. This guy was miserable for hours, days, weeks, months, years even on end, not only working a crap job that he absolutely hated, but living such a frugal existence outside of that there wasn't much pleasure to be had there either. And this was just a moment that really struck me. I believe we all have options, and although it's been argued with me that my view is perhaps a bit idealistic and maybe even unrealistic to think that we can all make a living doing something that we love, I do still believe that we can find a way of making a living, at least not doing something that we really hate. My point was that instead of directing all his energy to squirreling away every pound that he's got to escape quickly, That energy would be better directed finding a better work situation so that you wouldn't have to escape so quickly. And I still think that. But I do realise that there is more to it than this, and it is probably a fair criticism to say that I didn't do justice to the topic as a whole. So let's try and put that right, shall we? Now, we all know by now, don't we, to ignore the RE part of FIRE, the retire early. Most people I meet are simply about the FI, not the RE. Financial independence, not necessarily retiring early. But what I am only now starting to appreciate is, for these people, what they seek is not, in fact, a job that they love or one that they at least like. What they seek is the option of having no job at all, any job of any kind whatsoever. So perhaps we can then agree that if we boil this down to its simplest form, the objective is, in fact, freedom. Fellow YouTuber and all-round good guy Neil from Neil Invests actually left this interesting comment on the original video where he tells us that he loves his job, but he still wants to give it up in 10 years' time to tend to some land. And he's also honest enough to tell us that he's had it pretty rough and he does not want to be back there for him or his kids. I get it. There's no better security than not having to work another day in your life if you so choose not to. And I want to get there too. I did say in the previous video that I do have 1 foot in the FIRE camp. Well, maybe it's 1.5 feet. I mentioned earlier the Playing Footsie podcast that I was kindly invited on, which was loads of fun. Again, link to that in the description below. But one of the things that was posed to me in that podcast was this conundrum around timescales. The whole working a job that you hate thing really depends how far away you are from FIRE. Let's say, for example, if you'd only got 5 years left to achieve your goal of FIRE, would it be worth sticking out that crap job that you hated because you're so close to the finish line? In truth, I still really struggle with this. 5 years feels like about 4 years, 11 months too long to me to be miserable, maybe even more than that. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, let's say for 48 weeks of the year, that's 9,600 hours over 5 years. That is a load of hours to be miserable. But the answer to almost every meaningful life problem for me almost always comes down to one thing, and that's balance. You need to find a way of living for now as well as planning for the future. Enjoy the money you've got now whilst also planning for later life. And it seems to be this balance that we find so hard. Extreme views either way are no good, albeit them much easier to sell on a platform like this, YouTube. Being ultra frugal and miserable now in order to make future you potentially happy is a farce. In the same way as blowing all of your money now with no regard for the future is also beyond stupid. Even here on Investopedia, it talks about people investing up to 70% of their income. Now, I invest a lot of money each month, but it ain't 70% of my income. Maybe I could achieve FIRE much quicker if I did, I'm sure the numbers would say so, but it would have such an impact on my life now that it would just begin to tip the balance in the wrong way again. In and amongst the barrage of comments I've had on this topic, one person rightly said that it really would be the vast minority of people that would continue to work if they had enough cash not to. But I do honestly think that really does come down to whether you have a job that you like or love. I know loads of people that have retired and within 12 months are already looking for new work or at least somewhere to volunteer. It's a complex conversation and one I don't claim to have all the answers to. But when I look at my own finances, I wouldn't say that I am careful with my money because I sort of hate that phrase. What I would say I am with my money is deliberate. I know what every pound I earn is destined to do, whether that's to be enjoyed now or at some point in the future. And what that means is that my family don't really want for anything, but neither do we have every luxury going. But it does mean that we will have the option of no work probably a lot earlier than most people. And I'll be ready when that day comes for people to come up to me and ask me, how did you do it? So come on, Fire Brigade. Let's be friends, eh? Oh, just had a message back from one of the community groups about rejoining. They've said, I'll read you the message. F*** off, you're not clever or funny, and your videos are Oh, come on, there was some funny stuff in this video here about what finance YouTubers don't tell you. I mean, there was proper sketches and costume changes and everything. Go on, take a look.